Hi, this is Border Crossings. My name is Larry London, and today we welcome singer-songwriter Robert Ellis. From a small town just outside of Houston, Texas, Robert Ellis discovered his inner voice at an early age, starting as a songwriter and using music to express his thoughts and feelings. His influences included Michael Jackson, Garth Brooks, and No Doubt. And his first obsession was Doc Walker, so his mother encouraged him to learn guitar. Robert says he walked the streets of New York several years ago looking for inspiration for new songs. Well, he found them and left New York with a collection to choose from. His new CD is his fourth. This one is self-titled, which is a statement about who he is. The music is very personal, and Robert Ellis lets us inside as we listen to every song. Robert Ellis joins us on today's Border Crossings. Hi, this is Larry London. Welcome to Border Crossings. And today in our studios and on tour for a brand new album, we welcome Robert Ellis to Washington. And it's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
It's exciting times. Have you put out, this is your debut album? No, it's your fourth album, right?
Fourth album.
Not the debut, but you called it
difference.
You call it Robert Ellis. Why would you all of a sudden want to call the album your name? This is kind of a big, bold leap to put your name as the name of an album.
Well, we ran out of ideas.
Okay.
So you get one of those.
You get a Robert Ellis album. No, seriously. I mean, you pick the name, your name for your album. Is it something? There's songs that are very personal to you, or what was the motivation?
I think it's a combination of. I produced this record, and I think we're at a certain point in our career too, where we're not really. I feel like we're fully realizing some of the ideas that we've been working on for years. And this record felt like sort of the culmination of a lot of things, a lot of touring and a lot of writing and production. And I don't know, when the record was finished, it was just like, this is a very personal statement. And it just seemed natural to use the self-titled thing. Mm-hmm.
And all the songs are originals that you wrote.
There's a couple that are not. There is one that my friend Matt Vasquez wrote. He's from a band called Delta Spirit, and he's an incredible songwriter. And then there's 2 or 3 that were co-writes. And then, the 5 of us in the band, Kelly included, work on a lot of the material together. So, it's kind of all over the place.
And today, you have just one of the full band with you. You brought one member.
Kelly Doyle. He's a member of the Perfect Strangers, which is the name of the band.
The Perfect Strangers?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's the name of one of the songs on this record, Perfect Strangers. And I really like the idea of calling the band the Perfect Strangers. Merle Haggard's band was the Strangers. And I guess it implies that we're somehow more perfect.
Exactly. How long have you guys been together? I mean, obviously 4 albums into this. It's a number of years.
10 years I've known you?
A long time.
Yeah.
And you guys are both from outside of Houston, or?
Well, we met in Houston proper, and we started playing music together there, but we both come from suburbs, and I think at the time we were old enough to do it, we both got out and went to the big city,
And so the style of music that you perform, I've been reading a number of different names for it, jazz, rock, pop, country. I mean, one of the songs I heard you warming up with sounded a bit country-esque.
Yeah.
So where would you feel most comfortable? What lane will we find Robert Ellis most at ease in?
Gosh, I used to care a lot more about how to talk about that sort of thing. But I think I've realized that no matter what I try to prompt people to hear or think about, they kind of make their own decision anyway. So, it's at the core of everything we do is like narrative songwriting. So I think that in some ways is country to some people. I think it's also present in classic, jazz songwriting and folk and I don't know, but that's at the core. So I think a lot of people hear that like a story and they immediately go, it's a country song. And also we're from Texas, which is not easy to hide as a singer.
I don't hear any accent.
Well, thank you.
Y'all. But, the music that you're creating now, obviously, as you mentioned, crosses over a number of different kinds of formats. And would you call yourself a singer or a songwriter first? What did you discover about yourself musically, early on?
I probably didn't realize that I was a singer until maybe 2 years ago, really. I mean, I always wrote songs, and I knew that I could deliver them, but it's just occurred to me recently, like, oh, I can actually, like, sing a little bit. And I think this record is sort of me realizing that in some ways and pushing some of that melodic stuff a little harder and trying to, actually use my voice like a singer would. But no, for a long time, I remember in high school, I joined choir, and up until then, I really thought I didn't have a very good voice. There was actually a kid in 6th grade named John Michael who we were in some kind of fight, and his insult to me was, "You're just a kid with a weird voice." And for some reason that just like replays in my head, for my whole life. I remember him like insulting the timbre of my voice, which is such a weird thing for a 6th grader to say. But joke's on him.
Right. You've made it, and you're well on the way now. All right, well, Robert Ellis is here, and so we're going to ask for you to do a song, if you wouldn't mind. We'd love to hear something. What are you going to perform for us?
I'm going to play you guys a song called High Road. The High Road. I wrote this with my good friend Johnny Fritz. We co-wrote this together, and it's kind of about songwriting. It's a little inside baseball,
The high road is closed for repairs, and nobody cares about songs anymore. My enemies are passing me by, and I don't know that I could keep up anyway. The high road is wearing me down. It all comes from out of nowhere. I'm losing the hair on top of my head. I'm losing sight, I'm losing the fight, to a flash in the pan, to a thief in the night. The high road is wearing me down. The stage is like a window to the kitchen from the dining room, and I'm sweating here underneath the lights. They'll serve me up, eat me alive, and if I'm not what they had in mind, they'll send me back and scrape me off the plate. But I go out there every day, pretending it's the other way around, and I've got them eating from the palm of my hand.
All right, sounding great.
Thanks.
I like that sound. That's Robert Ellis, who's here on Border Crossings today. And is this a headline tour for you?
Yes.
Because I know you've been on tour with Alabama Shakes and a number of other artists.
Yeah, we've been doing support tours for, I don't know, 6-7 years, something like that. Toured with a lot of my favorite songwriters, and been fortunate to make a lot of friends. And this is a month headlining tour, and then we're going to go on another one right after that on the other side of the country. So,
what made you decide music as a career choice?
I was just checking the job listings,
This was
and
the most desirable.
It seemed like this was, the most positions were available, and I don't know that people that do this professionally really choose it, as much. It's not. If I thought that I had a choice, I think I'd be doing something that made me a lot more money. You know what I mean?
Well, you've been doing this for a while, as you mentioned a little while ago, about 10 years now. And collaborations, are they something that you do a lot of or don't do any of or want to do some? And if so, who would you want to collaborate with?
I love collaborating with people. And I was kind of slow to come around to it, because when you start writing songs and you get to a certain level, everyone's like, you have to co-write, you have to write with people. And I kind of always thought that meant, you go to some billionaire's office and have him condescend you, But at a certain point, I realized that I could, you can write with your friends, and you can write with people that you admire and respect. And there's a fair amount of that on this record. One of the songs was written with Angelina Presley. 2 of them were with Johnny Fritz. Kelly and me worked on that instrumental section that you heard on that last song. And my friend Matt Vasquez completely wrote the song How I Love You, So I don't think that there's any ego issues with collaboration, I think that it's all for the good of the song, and sometimes 2 heads are better than one.
And I know one of your songwriting idols is Paul Simon, from what I've read. You should probably reach out to him. Maybe he'd be open to a collaboration.
Paul, if you're listening, this is probably the closest I'll get to having an ear with you. So let's write a song. I don't.
Why not? Why not? So this tour, and you say there's a second half of this tour. Are you going internationally anywhere? Because right now we're broadcasting to an international audience. I'm sure they're tuning in and hearing the music and saying, I want to see this guy. I want to check him out. How would they do that?
Well, you can find us online, obviously. But we go to Australia a couple times a year, and we're going to Europe, I think, in the fall. And one of our big dreams is we really want to go to Japan. Oh. That's just something we really, really want to do. So if anybody listening can help us with that, please, we just want to go over there forever and never come back.
I lived there for a couple of years. A beautiful place.
You liked it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's great. Great music scene, too. Musically, there's Shibuya and quite a few other areas that are very, very music-oriented places. People really flock to the music there.
It just seems so cool. And every time we go to Australia, I'm like, comparatively, we're so close. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm like, why are we not doing this
Why not?
too? We fly for 20
Make that
hours.
one of the legs of the return trip.
That's what I'm saying.
Stop off there. All right, Robert Ellis is our guest today, and we're going to ask if you do another song for us.
I'd love to. Let's do California.
Is there a story behind this song?
Yes, I guess this is sort of a sad love lost song. It's a narrative through the eyes of a woman who's just, I guess, gotten a divorce or something. A lot of this stuff, like, I think there's a narrative element to this that on the surface is just about these characters, but then inevitably you sort of write yourself into the characters, and this feels very personal, although it's not necessarily about me,
It was a long way to go from Louisiana to Laredo, with everything that they own boxed up in the back of a van. She would have gone to the moon if that's what it took to follow him. It's funny what love makes you do, standing alone, and there in the kitchen she's packing up plates again. standing alone, and she is remembering every fight with him, thinking alone, what am I doing here in this ghost town? And now that he's gone, there isn't a reason for me to stick around. And she says, maybe I'll move to California with the unbroken part of my heart I still have left. Maybe I'll fall in love again someday. I'm not gonna hold my breath. I'm not gonna hold my breath. Which way to go when every road leads away from the things you wanted? Which way to go when every memory is built like a home that's haunted? Closing your eyes, dream of a place where things turn out the way you planned. Everything dies. Dream of a place where the living resides again. And she said, maybe I'll move to California with the unbroken part of my heart I still have left. Maybe I'll fall in love again someday. I'm not gonna hold my breath. I'm not gonna hold my breath. Oh, maybe I'll move to California with the unbroken part of my heart I still have left. Maybe I'll fall in love again someday. Maybe I'll move to California with the unbroken part of my heart I still have left. Maybe I'll fall in love again someday. I'm not gonna hold my breath. I'm not gonna hold my breath. I'm not gonna hold my breath.
All right, Robert Ellis. And the album is Robert Ellis. Now, you mentioned, autobiographical song account, maybe some of your own personal reflections and feelings. I mean, you just went through a tough time in your life, and a tough time in anybody's life to go through a divorce. And so a lot of the songs on this album came from that pain and that heartache and that personal place?
I mean, sure. It's inevitable, I think, that when you're writing, that stuff's going to seep in, you know?
Right, right.
But I also, I don't find... Let's put it this way. My life and the events that happen to me in my life verbatim are not near as interesting to me as what you can do with a narrative and a story if you let the characters kind of tell you what they want to do. You know, I could, I think, read you the events of my last 2 years, and they, without embellishment, to me sound pretty boring, you know? So I think your job as a songwriter is to take your experiences and your ideas about the world and then do something narratively that's interesting and hopefully communicate the emotion of that stuff, but still construct a story and be imaginative. And I don't think, enjoy my job very much if I was just, reading you guys my diary.
Well, you're a very interesting person with, it seems like, many different twists and turns, because I was reading where you grew up enjoying anything from No Doubt to Garth Brooks, which are they're not on the same page. They wouldn't be in the same show. And the album, one of the things you were doing was creating songs that had a 50s vibe, and then you wanted some with today's vibe and sound. So kind of you were going in quite a few different directions.
Yeah, I mean, but To me, the reality is anybody that's my age, I'm 27. I have trouble believing the old story that all of us try to tell you guys about, like, I just love like this one period of 50s soul music.
Right.
I mean, the reality for anyone my age is we've had the internet since we were kids.
Right.
And if we wanted to look up, I don't know, anybody, if we wanted to go springboard from, Duke Ellington to Ornette Coleman, you could easily do that in a really accessible way that you couldn't really before. And so this idea of like this isolated mountain town guy who only knows one style of bluegrass, it's a good story, I think, for the press, but but it's not necessarily true.
Not true. Yeah. No. I mean, you're very diverse, I guess would be the best word. Yeah. I mean, John Prine was a big influence for you as well.
Yeah, my uncle is a guitar player and songwriter, and he used to sing me the song Souvenirs when I was a little kid. And I remember it being my favorite song before I had any idea what it was about. And then as I've gotten older, John Prine's stuff is just so rich and full of, emotional information that all those songs mean different things to me, as the years go by. And we just played a cruise with him a couple months ago and saw him play 3 times in a row. And there were things in all those lyrics, and I'm like, I've been listening to him since I was a kid, and I've never noticed that. Just the way he delivers this one line or something just like punches you right in the stomach. And it's remarkable,
What's been the highlight for you so far? I mean, 4 albums in, that's a considerable career for most people.
I'm just really thankful and happy that we get to do what we're doing and more or less not be constrained by any expectations and, just continue to play music. And I don't know, we're really happy when we're at the hotel playing jazz songs and eating pizza, and that's as long as I can still get to do that and enjoy music and not have to work a job, I think I'm going to be really happy.
And you're working with an independent label, so that gives you a lot more flexibility and control than you would probably have from one of the major labels.
I would imagine. I don't have much experience with major labels, but I've heard all the horror stories, and that just has not been the case for us. They've been very supportive, and listen to the record that we delivered them. It's like, it's kind of all over the place. And they were just stoked about it,
So are most of the songs that you write kind of your view of the world as you see it, or are you observing other people? Is it how you live your life? Where do these songs come from?
They're kind of all over the place. I think one of the things you do as a writer is assume a character, whether you're conscious of it or not. And to me, sometimes it's more interesting if that character is maybe not a great person. Maybe I don't cast myself in a flattering light, So, no, all the songs aren't really about me per se, but like I said, there's pieces of me in all of them. And sometimes when you're writing a story about characters and they do something really horrible, you look back, 6 months later and you're like, oh man, that was me. You know what I mean? Like that was, even though I thought it was about this guy, it actually was something inside of me that I never would have said about myself if I was sitting down and writing to you how I thought I felt, I'm
sure there's pieces of us all in just about every piece of music out there that we can connect in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Now, the letters on your hand, I'd have to ask you what that's be. Since we're focused on your hand playing the guitar, people are going to say, what do those letters stand for?
I've got a bunch of tattoos. This is one. This is my ex-wife's name, Destiny. And, I like it quite a bit.
Put a K in front of it, then you got a radio station in San Diego. K-Des.
Or desk.
Or desk.
Or, I mean, if I really wanted to get creative, I could change the D to a P and make it say pesto.
That's it. There you go.
But I don't think I'm ever going to change it. I have a very unique, interesting relationship with her. We're still best friends. I talk to her all the time. When I go to Houston, we hang out with her and her boyfriend. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. With some of the realities of this lifestyle of traveling all the time, I think it would behoove all of us to sort of make our own rules and play our own way, and I just don't see a reason that we shouldn't be very close, even if we're not meant to be married,
That's great. Great advice for a lot of people, especially, young person, very wise.
Oh, thank you.
Wise advice. All right, are you going to do another song for us?
I will.
What is this one called, and where does it come from?
This one's called Drive-In, and I co-wrote this with Angelina Presley, who's a great Nashville singer-songwriter. And I don't know, we sat down and I almost canceled the session. And this is where great business and great management really comes in handy, because that morning I called my manager and was like, I'm a little bit tired and hungover, and I really don't want to go do this. And my manager was like, you need to suck it up, and you need to go to this writing session. It's going to take an hour, and if you don't like it, you can leave. And I was like, oh, you're right. And so I went, and then I ended up writing one of my favorite songs I've ever written, and it just kind of flowed really quickly. And I don't know, we pretty much finished the tune in an hour or something. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a lot of both of us in it. There's also a lot of Nashville in it, because we both were living there sort of at the time, and that's where we wrote it. And so a lot of these places are parts of Nashville and things you would do in Nashville.
Mm-hmm. What's it called?
It's called Drivin'.
Drivin'.
1, 2, 3. What am I supposed to do? Just drive around the fairgrounds another time or two. Where am I gonna go when the girl behind the counter at the coffee shop gets tired of me hanging around with nothing left to say, trying to get away? I'm bored out of my mind, and I've changed all the light bulbs and had this conversation about 3 million times or more. Guess I'll walk around the grocery store again. Oh, this don't feel like living. It's just surviving. I ain't going nowhere. Oh, I'm just driving. You're upstairs, and I'm down here watching television, trying to make some sense out of the way it feels to be so close to you and feel so far away. I just wish you'd go to bed without the expectation that I'd come up there and say something to help you feel like things aren't such a mess. I'll just sweep the floor and clean the desk, put up the dishes and then fold some clothes, I guess. Oh, this don't feel like living. It's just surviving. I ain't going nowhere. Oh, I'm just driving.
Robert Ellis in our studios and on tour right now. This is the first leg, and then a little break, and then off you go for the second leg.
Forever.
Forever. A musician is always touring. I mean, you're never not on the road. You're either in the studio or on the road somewhere.
Yeah, it's funny. I get the idea in my head. Sometimes I'm like, oh, but after 6 months, maybe I'll get to relax. And then that rolls around, and I'm like, got a new batch of songs, and it's just a never-ending cycle.
Do you ever have writer's block? Is that something that you as a songwriter experience?
No, I don't really. I heard, I can't steal this. I really wanted to just steal it. But Randy Newman said one time, somebody said, do you ever get writer's block? He said, no, I just lower my standards. And that's kind of how I feel. I mean, it's a job like any other. You know, if you sit down and show up at the office every day, I don't know. It seems kind of difficult to let that happen, you know?
Where's the strangest place a song ever came to you?
Gosh, strangest place. I don't know. A lot of the stuff is like you get just a seed of an idea while you're driving or something, and you mumble some crazy statement into your phone, or write some insane thing down on a napkin, and then you look at it later and you're like, what does that mean? Like, yeah, you're like, what does it's just like one word, but you don't have the ability to see the idea through, you know? So I find for me to like dedicate time every day to actually physically writing and to spend time, in the office more or less, it allows me to not really wait on that moment for a song to like hit you, because chances are you'll be in traffic, or you'll be on the subway, or you'll be somewhere you can't really do anything about it, or walking into a radio performance, and so I feel like if you just show up every day kind of at your job and you spend some dedicated time on it, then hopefully you just get lucky and those two things coincide. And so that's usually how it happens. But yeah, I've got a million of those, just out one night drinking, or like just anywhere where you're like, oh, that's a good idea. And I would say 90% of the time I look back at them, I'm like, that doesn't mean anything,
And something, and I guess you were inspired to write a song from a relationship you had when you were a little teeny kid. I read somewhere you were holding somebody's hand at 2 or 3 years old, that you remembered that.
It's called Couple Skate. And I don't know if it's a generational thing, but when I was a kid in this small town in Texas, every Friday night we all went to the skating rink and couple skated together and held hands. And I was on tour with Richard Thompson, and I journal every day. And part of that is just like thinking about things, thinking about, I don't know, imagining what my grandparents' house looked like and trying to describe every detail of a shelf that I remember or something, and just trying to get your brain to do things that it wouldn't normally do. And I don't know how I got on it, but I remembered this girl, and then I remembered skating, and then I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't know if that's been done before. And then I wrote that in the green room, before a show. And I played it that night and was like, oh, this is really fun. But yeah, I don't know. They kind of come from different places.
Have you ever dug up one of your old songs that you wrote many years ago when you were like a teenager or something, and looked back at it and said, oh, what was I thinking? Or maybe, you recorded it and said, I wrote, it's pretty good.
Yeah. That happens all the time. And a lot of times it's garbage. You look back and I'm like, oof, what was I doing? But there are little things in all of that. I keep sort of a library of notes in my computer and recordings. And there's the first song on the new record is called Perfect Strangers. And I wrote the bulk of it, like the middle part, in New York City over the course of a month. And then maybe 2 months later, I was going through old recordings, and I found this little instrumental melody, and I tacked it on to the beginning and end. It's like the intro and outro. And those two ideas are separated probably by 3 years. But sometimes I think you give yourself little gifts, like for the future. Right. Somehow, like
pay it forward.
There was like a relic of that idea must have been somewhere in there when I was writing this Perfect Strangers song, and I guess it's just all part of your vocabulary, and I don't know.
That's kind of cool. Well, if people want to get your album, or they want to check you out on the road, I'm sure you are active on social media. Where would people go? How do they find you?
My website, you can Google me.
What are those addresses?
RobertEllisMusic.com, and my Instagram's Robert Ellis Music, maybe. It's all pretty easy. You can definitely search it on Google.com.
All right. We'll get a copy of the album. Robert Ellis. Thank you guys for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Being on the show. Appreciate your music's great. Love your sound. Refreshingly different, and I enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
Robert Ellis is our guest, and you are tuned to Border Crossings.